I'm Michelle Hall. I am the new county chair in Brazos County. Progress, Texas is awesome. I want people's eyes to be opened and have them vote these horrific people out.
It's Friday, February 13th, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. As we close in on the primary, the endorsements are coming hard and heavy, and we have yet another to announce from the board here at Progress Texas, who have issued their endorsement for Austin State Representative Vikki Goodwin in her run for Texas Lieutenant Governor. Rep. Goodwin has impressed our board with her passionate advocacy for social justice, equity, healthcare access, affordable housing, and importantly, public education. Texas has never had a female lieutenant governor, and with Lieutenant Dan now in that office for 11 years and 24 days as of this recording, backing corporate interests over working families, suppressing Texas voters, crusading against our LGBTQ plus family, and importantly, callously slashing the reproductive rights of Texas women, it's high time a highly qualified, highly experienced, and highly determined woman take that job. We're planning to talk with Rep. Goodwin on today's In Progress show about an initiative she's putting forward to limit the encroachment of Donald Trump's ICE goon squads into our Texas neighborhoods. That will hit this feed this morning at 10:30. And Houston Friends In Progress will be on KPFT FM 90.1 in its brand new Friday morning 10 a.m. time slot for the very first time today, this morning. Please do tune in. Endorsements are further in the news cycle this morning as various labor organizations are falling on various sides of the governor's race. Paul Kobler of the Texas Tribune notes that Democratic candidate Austin State Rep and Progress Texas endorsee Gina Hinojosa has won the endorsements of the Service Employees International Union Texas and the Texas AFL-CIO, the state's largest labor group with more than 250,000 members in Texas. Texas AFL-CIO President Leonard Aguilar attributes their endorsement of Rep. Hinojosa to a decade plus of Abbott's reign in the governor's mansion, failing to improve the standing of labor unions in the state. Aguilar says, quote, "This isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. It's workers versus billionaires. That's why nearly 400 local unions affiliated with the Texas AFL-CIO are backing Gina Hinojosa for governor," unquote. Meanwhile, a similar sentiment with a very different outcome from Teamsters Joint Council 58 and Joint Council 80, representing 40,000 workers across Texas, the Plumbers Local Union 68, International Longshoremen South Atlantic and Gulf Coast District Association, and the Pipefitters Local Union 211, who have all endorsed Governor Abbott. Brent Taylor, Secretary-Treasurer of Joint Council 80 and International Vice President for the Teamsters Southern Union, saying, quote, and this will sound familiar, "The Teamsters do not care if you have a D, an R, or an I next to your name. We're interested in one thing. Are you ready to help us tackle big issues to improve the lives of working families," unquote. And we'd suggest that Governor Abbott's carpet bombing of funding for public education, his unnecessary and stupid blocking of Medicaid expansion, his kowtowing to corporations with endless tax breaks, and perhaps most importantly here, his refusal to address issues regarding low wages and basic workplace rights plaguing Texas workers may have gone unnoticed in those endorsement deliberations. Sticking with endorsements here, and this is a weird one as a person who spent a lot of time involved in live music. As a pro musician and in entertainment media in Austin, I'm having just a little bit of trouble here. Karen Brooks Harper at the Dallas Morning News says Music Venue Alliance Texas, a collective of 800 live music venues across the state, has endorsed Governor Abbott's re-election run, citing the Texas Music Incubator Rebate Program, which will give $200 million in tax rebates over the next decade to eligible Texas venues and festival promoters, which is fine, but also hearkening back to Governor Abbott's insistence on live music venues remaining open during the global COVID-19 pandemic, which, make no mistake, was a very hard time for any Texas business involving gatherings. But that rush to reopen was also very much in denial of science and public health best practices. Music Venue Alliance Texas is clearly operating in close tandem with the Texas Music Office, which itself is a department of Governor Abbott's administration. So there's that. And a lot of the venues you see listed on their roster are honky-tonk type places that cater to country music, so that makes sense too. But I'm noticing places like the Mohawk on Red River in Austin and Trees in Dallas's Deep Ellum, both very much centered in alternative music sensibilities that seem wildly out of sync with anything Greg Abbott has ever done. Carousel Lounge might be Austin's most proudly and authentically weird, older, small music venue. They're on this list. Flamingo Cantina is here, the home of reggae and punk rock on 6th Street and a few others. Clearly not enough votes there to counteract a bunch of the other venue owners whose bottom lines are clearly more important to them than the well-being of their patrons and the political sensibilities of probably 99% of the musicians who take their stages. Strange bedfellows indeed. See that list in the show notes and maybe ask about this next time you go out and hit a show. Quick mention here of some new polling we've seen regarding the governor's race. Christian Jaime at the El Paso Times says the polling and survey research organization GBAO has released new figures showing the race for governor of Texas in a virtual tie, as Governor Abbott, who won his last race in 2022 by 11 points, currently leads Democrat Gina Hinojosa by only 3 points, just inside the margin of error of 3.1%. One key finding here, quote, voters know Greg Abbott and they don't like him. Abbott is known to 98% of likely Texas voters, while his favorability is underwater at only 45%. Importantly, he is disliked by independent voters, with only 31% having a favorable view. This combination of being known and disliked by voters puts Greg Abbott in a vulnerable position this election cycle, unquote. See the show notes for more details on that new polling from GBAO. As we wrap up here, I got a really interesting text from Dallas supporter Adam Schwartz yesterday that's reframed the way I've been thinking about how to keep focus in a flooded information zone, using that Steve Bannon term for what we're all experiencing right now as outrage after outrage after outrage makes it really hard to keep in mind what's important. I've linked this in the show notes this morning, Instagram thread from attorney Daphne Delvaux, in which she talks about what she calls reptile theory and the way the right wing is using it in an attempt to keep its opponents confused, off guard, and off target. In a nutshell, reptile theory is a legal strategy designed to trigger a jury's primitive survival instincts by influencing our so-called reptilian brain, the part responsible for reacting to threats, by again flooding the zone with outrageous information and thus triggering in us, in order, hypervigilance, rage, obsession, exhaustion, and then collapse. Our nervous systems are not designed to easily process this much negative information, while our nature as seekers of justice compels us to keep deep diving, all resulting in that gross feeling of unease that tends to creep in and undermine life in general. We've all felt that from time to time, and the Jeffrey Epstein matter is probably the worst instance of this process. As Delvaux puts it, quote, please know this, super important, you are not crazy. You are having a normal biological response to abnormal psychological warfare, oscillating between being completely consumed and enraged and then wanting to turn away and burn your phone forever is a healthy response. That swing is your nervous system trying to protect itself. The risk is not the oscillation. The risk is not noticing it. Noticing is the rupture to the trance. The moment you observe the pattern, instead of being inside it, the spell weakens, unquote. The important part here is once you realize this is happening, it's easier to recognize these disruptive patterns and escape this cycle. Great stuff. Again, linked in the show notes. Super important to check out. I highly recommend you read all the way through it. And Adam, thank you so much for sending that. Houston friends, again, starting today, this morning, our weekly roundtable show In Progress joins the regular weekday schedule on KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, where we'll be on at 10 a.m. every Friday morning, and that's in addition to our current slot on Sunday mornings at 11 on KPFT HD2. So In Progress hits the Houston airwaves twice a week, starting today. Huge thanks to our friends at KPFT Radio for the support and the partnership. It's almost time to vote in the March primary. Early voting in the primary starts on Tuesday, February 17th, this next Tuesday. And once again, since that also happens to be Fat Tuesday, our sustaining supporters in Austin are invited to join me in Progress, Texas to celebrate next Tuesday evening, February 17th, and your first beer is on me. Watch your email for location details, and if you're not a sustaining member yet, now would be a great time to become one, like Kimberly Sari, Diane Roberts, and Ed Limbaugh all have. Go to progresstexas.org/donate right now, and I hope to see you on Tuesday. See the show notes for Texas 2026 March primary ballot form from the Texas Tribune. You can use right now with your home address to see who's running in the primary in which you choose to vote. All about voting in Texas can be found at govotetexas.org. Since the new year, Progress Texas has devoted coverage and advocacy to the issues you're passionate about, and like no other outlet has given you direct access to the candidates in the biggest races in the country, Texas legislative, statewide, and federal elections. Please join us as we work to raise $14,000 this February. Whether you give $35, $100, or $500, any contribution will bring us closer to our goal and ensure Progress Texas can advance our Project 2026 plans, including Spanish language and continued radio expansion across Texas. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Friday, February 13th, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is an independent, nonprofit, rapid response media organization. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media and action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Taking a much-needed day off for President's Day on Monday, so we'll see you again here on Tuesday.